Hi, this is Ed Rising, and welcome back to Ed's Pop-O-Matic podcast, where it's a retro pop culture podcast where everything retro beats anew if you keep it in your heart. Today's episode is a second installment celebrating Paul McCartney's 80th birthday. It is also a very special one because today we have our very first live guest. Before we get started, let me do a promo for some of our podcast friends and podcasts that I hope you will check out and enjoy. Plastic EP. He is the hardest working man in the podcast world with over 800 shows. He is probably counting up to 900 about now. He does interviews promoting authors, musicians, pop culture figures. He does panel shows, including a pop culture news show that I am fortunate to be part of. So check him out on Facebook and YouTube, and his band, the EPs, can be heard on Spotify and most other streaming music platforms. The Honeymooners podcast with Joe Conti and Louis Fatts celebrate the greatest show of all time as Joe and Louis discuss this great series that starred Jackie Gleason, Audrey Meadows, Art Carney, and Joyce Randolph. It's a great piece of New York from the 50s. You can hear this podcast on Spotify and most other podcast platforms. Now, on to today's episode, a second installment celebrating Paul McCartney's 80th birthday, and our special guest. She is the first guest on our podcast. She is a journalist, a blogger, an author of several books, such as Michael J. Fox, Michael Jackson, FAQ. All that is left to know about the king of pop. The songs we were singing, a guided tour of lesser known Beatles songs. Beatles and Fandom, a new book co-edited with Ken Womack, as well as contributing to various other publications, including Beatle Fan Fanzine. She's a doctorate in instructional technology and is present all over the podcast world, including Facebook Live, where she does broadcasts from the chaos in her backyard. She is a co-host of the Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video podcast, along with Ken Michaels, Tom Hunyadi, and Joe Mayo. I am speaking of the queen of Beatles media, Kit O Toole. Welcome, Your Majesty.
Hello, Ed. I am thrilled to be here. I'm honored to be your first guest. It is just a thrill to be here.
I am very happy to have you here. It's interesting because we met at the Fest for Beatles fans back in April, and in the time that I've come to listen to your the various podcasts and appearances and all that, it's been very nice to get to know you and actually find that you are very friendly with everyone, and it's a joy to get to know you.
Oh, you're very sweet. Yeah, I felt like when we met at that fest that I already knew you because, in addition to that, we'll talk about it later. You've taken some of my online classes
That's right.
in music. So
Absolutely.
so when we met at the fest, I was just like, Ed, you'll meet in person at last.
It's just amazing how these things work out and getting to know each other after a digital, whatever you want to call it, a digital or social media thing, and getting to see each other in person. It's a very, very cool experience.
Indeed.
So the first half of this show, I'd like to ask you some questions about your background in music and how you came to become a Beatles and Paul McCartney fan, and how that came into your life, and of course the new Beatles and Fandom book. So where did you get your love and dedication for music?
Well, it was kind of part of my DNA because my father is not a professional musician, but he actually plays several instruments. He plays guitar, bass, drums, and when he was in the band in high school, now saxophone. And he didn't continue the sax as he went along, but guitar, bass, and drums he did. And he led the guitar mass at our church. And so, he would have, there would be a number of high school kids that he would lead in the mass. And so kids would come over to our house and would be practicing all the time.
Yeah.
So if he wasn't playing, 8 tracks, I mean, yes, it was 8 tracks. It's playing back in the 70s. If he wasn't playing them, he was playing music live.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of jazz. He really loved jazz, but he also loved rock. He loved Latin music. I mean, it was all kinds of stuff. And so I, grew up listening to this, and then he, taught me about different kinds of music. And so it was kind of inevitable,
Well, that's so great that you had the exposure of all this different type of music.
Exactly.
And to have a father that was able to share it with you, and that's really very, very cool. When I was a kid, I used to go to the guitar masses, the folk masses they used to call it back in the day. And so so that's really very cool.
Yeah, and I often say, I think I mentioned it in maybe the Michael Jackson book, that I dedicated to them, because I said they never told me to turn the music down. My parents
that's a great line. It's a great line.
Yep,
I think you should write a book about that title alone. I think that's great. Yeah, that's cool. I might steal it from you.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Of course, that wasn't the case in my house, but another story, another time.
They never did. They never did.
So what was the impetus to get you to start writing in publications and eventually getting into blogging and so forth?
Sure. Well, I started getting into the Beatles in 8th grade. I started that, and then started, learning all about them and everything. But as this was all going on, I've always loved writing. I wanted to be a writer since as far back as I can remember.
Yeah.
And originally I was studying journalism in college. And then I started moving toward teaching. And, I was then working on, I got a master's in writing. And then as I was moving toward teaching, I was working on my doctorate in instructional technology at Northern Illinois University. While I was doing all that, I would, for fun, work on, I would write for, there used to be, and unfortunately, I think a lot of them are gone, these wonderful free music papers. In Chicago, one of them was called Showcase Chicago. And I used to write for them in college. I would write record reviews. I would interview local bands, and it was just for fun and to get a little experience in writing. Then when I was in grad school, I started writing for Beatle Fan Magazine. They were looking for they were looking for somebody to review Beatles websites. I mean, this was like a new thing, in the mid 90s. Right. And I really, it was like a goal of mine to write for Beatle Fan Magazine. I had been a longtime subscriber at that point. And when I saw that they were looking for columnists, I thought, now's my chance,
Right on. Yeah.
And so I applied for it, got it, still writing the column today. So I was writing for them. So this was all just for fun, and it was my hobby. So when I finished my doctorate, I was really burned out. I was so burned out, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to pursue that as a career. So while I was deciding on this, I started a blog. I started a music blog. This was like in 2008, something like that. Started doing that, and I was just writing about, just music. I think my blog was Listen to the Band. I had to get a Monkees reference in there. And I was writing just about my favorite kinds of music and writing about artists I thought deserved more attention. This started getting some interest among people. And I then thought, maybe this is something I ought to look at. Because, of course, when I was writing for publications before, there was no internet. It was print or nothing. And so long story short, I ended up writing for a blog called Blog Critics, which is still around. Started writing reviews for them, and then started writing more opinion pieces and everything, and worked my way up to music editor. Then switched over to another blog called Blinded by Sound, where they let me write my own Beatles column, Deep Beatles, which was like a dream of mine to do.
I'd love to have that freedom, huh?
Yeah, it really, I mean, it was just so great. And all of this then led up to me being contacted by Robert Rodriguez, who, we all know from Something About the Beatles. And I don't think he had started that at this point. I'm not sure if he had started that podcast by this time. This was like 2014, something like that. And he said, Backbeat Books, which does that FAQ series, is looking for someone to write a Michael Jackson book.
Right.
Yep. And I had written something for Blog Critics about, I think it was around the time he died, and I had written something else about Michael Jackson. And he said, they're looking for someone to write an FAQ book on him. You should apply. So I did, and got the job,
Wow.
So everything turned into this completely different
life, really,
life.
right? It's amazing, huh?
So what started as this hobby became my job.
Wow.
And so that's how it all started.
Well, that's really great. It's great. My father said to me a long time ago, and he says it to anybody in our family, if you can find something that you do that you really enjoy, you'll never really work.
Exactly.
Find something you really love to do and make that your life.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's absolutely true.
it's really very cool.
Yeah.
So you talk about, how the Beatles came into your life in junior high.
Mm-hmm.
And that was around the first time that, in reading your book, Songs We Were Singing,
Mm-hmm.
I read the story about how you first heard the song 8 Days a Week.
Yep.
And which is also one of my favorite songs, because it was also one of my first Beatles songs, because my sister had the Beatles 6 album and she played that endlessly. And so I was like, this is a great song.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's just the harmonies and everything that makes that record so great.
Yep.
It's got that effervescent sound to it. I can't find the word for it exactly. I'm
Yep.
struggling with words like that these days. I'm trying to find how to describe that hit song, that hook, and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. The emotional content that just makes you or for lack of a better word, swoon. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yep. It evokes an emotional response.
Yeah.
Yep. It was in 8th grade. I was in chorus class, and one day a week in chorus class, we got to bring in our music that we liked. I
Yeah.
also think it was a day for the chorus teacher to take a day off, but that's another that's another story. But anyway, one of my fellow students brought in the Beatles 20 Greatest Hits cassette, the pre-1 album. And so it was playing, and I was talking to my best friend from junior high at the time. We were talking, and all of a sudden 8 Days a Week came on,
Yeah.
and my ears perked up because it was
Yeah.
just so different from the way they started the song with the fade in.
Yeah.
That immediately, it's like, oh, what's this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just so darn catchy. And then of course the chorus that leads in with the that hand clap
That hand
part.
clapping is just so fantastic.
I mean,
Right.
it's just so darn catchy. It just
Yeah.
grabs you.
Right.
And then the middle 8 with those incredible harmonies. I mean,
Hold me,
yeah.
love.
Yeah, I mean, it is just a darn catchy song, and it sounded like nothing else. I mean, at the time I was probably listening to Wham, Duran Duran, and all, not putting down those groups at all, but this just sounded completely different to me.
Yeah.
And so after that, I was like, I got to check this band out. I mean, I had heard of the Beatles. It wasn't like this was completely new to me. And Dad played, some of their stuff on guitar, but not this.
But now it was coming to you in a different way.
Exactly.
You were getting it from another peer, and
Yes.
it was coming to you almost as a surprise.
Yeah,
And
I
so
mean,
that in
yeah.
itself will probably electrify it a bit,
Exactly, exactly. And I'd
Yeah.
never heard this particular song before.
Yeah.
And that was it. I was hooked.
Right on. It's funny you mentioned chorus class because
Mhm,
I had a teacher that was sort of a hip teacher when I was in seventh grade.
mhm,
And Miss Gold, she's a very nice lady. And she was a Beatles fan. She used to love the early Beatles sound. And she
mhm.
would talk about it all the time. And I would try to be hip and try to be, and I'm totally nerdy as the day is long.
Oh no.
And so I would try to impress her. Maybe I had a crush on her. I don't really think it was that big of a deal, but whatever. So I told her my favorite Beatles song is "I'm a Believer,"
Oh
and she was so nice about it. She just kind of smiled, patted me on my head, sent me away. You
no.
know, I
I'll
came
tell
back
you.
the next day. I realized what I did.
Oh my
Oh,
God. Oh my God, that's so funny. And she's like,
yeah.
you're kind of close.
So
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
yeah, but it's great when you hear music from when you're young and how
Mhm.
that affects you. And the funny thing about the 8 days a week line is I just think that was just such a very creative way to say I love you,
Yeah,
all my heart and all that as adolescents will do, and
exactly. Just a
maybe today they
very
would
fun.
say I love you 24/7,
Yeah,
not
right.
quite
But
the
it was
same thing.
just exactly. It was a clever way to do it. And years later, when the movie 8 Days a Week came out,
Right.
in the theater, and I remember watching it, in the theater with of course, a big crowd of people. And when the song came on, it was so fun to
Yeah.
sit there, and everybody was, doing that, and it was just so fun. I mean, all these years later, it's still, it's just so damn catchy, and people still respond to it.
Did you see Paul McCartney's tour the year that he opened the show with that?
I think, what year was that? Was that
Might have been 2013 or 2016.
yeah, I think if it was 2013, I think I saw that one. Yes. I think I
Yeah.
did. I've seen him so many times. I'm trying to keep it all straight. I
So
think I did see that tour. Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how was it that you came about to become a fan of Paul McCartney?
Well, I've told the story. It's kind of crazy. It was through Michael Jackson. It was, Michael Jackson in 82, 83. I mean, of course, he was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like, you know, like on another dimension, he was so big. And of course, he did those duets,
Right.
Girl Is Mine, and then Say.
Right.
And the first Paul album I ever got was Pipes of Peace.
Right.
And it was because of Say. And and that was, of course, before I really started getting into the Beatles. So I bought that album strictly because of that single. And
Right.
so when I heard it, I was kind of like, oh, this Paul McCartney guy. Okay, what are these songs? I started, listening to them. And so that was my introduction to Paul. And I mean, I shouldn't say who's this Paul McCartney. I mean, I knew who he was.
Right.
And probably I would, as at that point, I was kind of like, oh, like wasn't the Beatles, that was that group he was in before Wings. I mean, probably I was at that stage,
Right. Right.
so
Right.
I wasn't, I wasn't that into him at that point. But even though, and I think I've talked about this on Talk More Talk, even though Pipes of Peace isn't, my favorite of his albums, I'll always have some affection for it
Of course, it's your
because
first.
my first one, that's the very first. And I have to say, I will also always have, some affection for Michael Jackson, because of that. He
Of
introduced
course.
me to Paul.
Of course. Of course. Oh, Michael Jackson was tremendous.
And he
I
was.
mean,
And oh
just
yeah,
absolutely an amazing performer, producer, songwriter, and dancer, and he had so much
exactly.
talent.
He really did.
Such a
And
terrible waste.
I know I mean, it
Really.
really is. And when I worked on that book, I really, it just, brought it home again to me, just what incredible talent he was. And I even, in the introduction to that book, I don't want to get too far off the subject, but I'll just mention that when he debuted the moonwalk on Motown 25,
Right.
I said, like, that was my generation's Beatles on Ed
Beatles on
Sullivan.
Ed Sullivan, right?
I mean, it
Yeah,
really was, because I mean,
yeah.
everybody was talking about the next day. I remember it being on the playground with my friends. We were all trying to figure out how he did it. I mean, it was that same kind of, I mean, really, it was that kind of impact,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so that's how I
No, it
was
was
introduced to
huge.
Paul.
Cool.
Hmm.
That's really cool. That's
Yeah.
great. Um, Let me see. So, one of the things about McCartney's songwriting and his whole overall production is that, he has this huge, great ability to write melody
Yeah.
and to be able to put a song together, produce it, and whether it's he's taking 2 or 3 songs and he's putting them together, or it's just straightforward love song or whatever, or rock song or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, there's an ingredient in Paul McCartney's music that I'm going to go a little off the rails here. That
Okay.
is very hard for me to express because it's an emotional thing, being that he was the cute Beatle. He always had a tendency of mugging for the camera and
Yeah.
being, a certain way that the girls would swoon or whatever, this and that. And even though I'm a guy and a straight guy, there's an element of that's very attractive.
Sure.
And so, you begin to wonder, is there's a element of his singing and performing in a song that reminds me of a wink and a smile that are happening at the same time. And that's something that's an attractive thing with Paul's music to me.
Absolutely. I mean, I've said, many times on Talk More Talk as well. I mean, some of the songs, both lyrically and melodically, and the way he delivers it, because he's such an incredible singer.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, at his peak, I mean, in his voice, I mean, he could do so many different things with his voice. Oh, absolutely. I'm like, my God, if a guy wrote some of those songs for me like he did for Linda, I would turn into goo. I mean, I mean, are you kidding me? I
And
mean,
it's
good
and
Lord.
you hear something like "No More Lonely Nights," which
Yeah.
is one of his later works, but it's
Hmm.
still, I mean, an amazing moment in that
Hmm.
movie when he sings that song. And maybe it's even, and we should could do a whole thing on "Give My Regards to Broad Street," but just the whole concept of the dramatic moment.
Yeah, that
The way that
crescendo.
whole thing is, and just the way that whole song builds, it's
Hmm.
just it's tremendous talent.
It is.
And
It really is. That is such a gorgeous song. I wish he had done it. I would have loved to have heard it live.
yeah,
And it's yeah. I mean, the way he starts it out very softly, and then he gets to that that incredible
you know,
emotional kind of crescendo.
and
It's
like yourself, and his father was a great influence on him, on his
indeed,
music, and
indeed.
love for music, and that I think helped him appreciate George Martin more so than maybe Lennon and Harrison did, because he had a greater idea of jazz and so forth, and so orchestration wasn't all that far removed from that.
Yeah, he really did have a great background. Some years ago, I did a presentation for the I think it was the Sergeant. It was a Sergeant Pepper conference, celebrating 50th anniversary, and it was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and did a presentation about the influence of music hall on British Music Hall and Sergeant Pepper, and
Okay.
particularly on Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And it was a fascinating thing to research, because it really influenced all of them, because the music hall tradition, which it's kind of best described, it was sort of, music hall was sort of their version of vaudeville.
Which
It's
is
like the
why which maybe is why he has an affection for being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, and why
exactly.
he performs it, because it has that music hall
Yeah, it does.
sound to
And
it.
yep, and his father, Paul's father, was involved. He played in some music hall productions, played piano and all that for a brief time. He didn't get to do it, as long as he could, because of course he got married, had kids, and the whole thing.
Yeah, sure.
But but he never lost his affection for a lot of the songs from that era. And so he would play them at family parties. And so
Right.
Paul grew up listening to all this
All
stuff.
that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
And so he would write. I mean, he wrote When I'm 64 as a tribute to his father, not only because he was turning 64, but because that's music hall. That
And he
is
was like
the style.
16 or whatever when he wrote it or
Yeah,
something like that.
exactly. So he absorbed that tradition. So, in Paul's compositions, he draws from so many different backgrounds because that's what he grew up listening to. And the
Right
music
on.
hall is one of those traditions. It's really a fascinating thing to look into, the stars of that period and everything. But again, that's what he, kind of like what I was growing up listening to. That's what he did too. Yeah.
Well, this is what makes him such a great songwriter, because he
Yep.
takes everything that's an influence in his life and he puts it into his music.
That's right.
You know,
That's right. Yep. What makes his music so unique? Yeah.
right on. So I wanted to ask you about the new book that well, it's not exactly new, but it's
Mhm.
one of the books we don't talk about as much.
Yep.
The book about Beatles and fandom that you
Mhm.
co-edited with Ken Womack.
Mhm.
And just the experience of being able to um, of how Beatles fandom has grown and changed, how you see it with people from the first generation. And that's one of the things that I experienced at the festival in April,
Yep.
is that we met up with first generation people like Deborah Greenberg
Yep.
and Janice Mitchell, who had their books about their experiences as Beatle fans. And so you had that generation. Then you had people later on, people like Ken and yourself,
Mhm.
everybody else that keeps moving that forward.
Mhm.
And now we have all of these young people that are so engaged in the Beatles music that I'll be honest with you, it took me a step back. I had a little hard time to first fully appreciate it, because I tend to defend the Beatles music or defend McCartney, because you always figure younger people are going to be saying, well, whatever's cool and hip today was good, it's always going to be better than what was yesterday.
Yeah.
And so, but I love the fact that you and so many others are advocates for these people, and
Yep.
I've become one as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well,
You know,
fan studies in academia has become more popular, and which I think is great because studying fandom, because I think before it was seen as, fandom in some ways I think took on a negative tone for a while because you think of fanatical, or I mean like like it was weird, and and I mean of course it isn't.
yeah,
And I mean it as I said, I just think for a while it was seen as something negative, but fan studies then I think today is now a more respected form because it's fascinating, because
yeah,
particularly now with well what we're doing right now,
hmm
with the explosion of the internet now, are now not just being like so-called passive fans where they're just listening to the music and everything. They're creating something of their own out
right,
of the fandom,
yeah,
like podcasts, like younger people are doing on TikTok, others create art. I mean, we see there's some really talented artists out there.
right,
Eric Cash is one of them, or Shannon, or so many others that are inspired to create that.
right,
For many years there have been, fan fiction writers.
right.
There have been, so many, and so fandom takes on another dimension. Tribute bands. They're
Yes.
tribute bands.
Yeah, I have
So
friends of mine in tribute bands, and
exactly.
so that's their contribution,
Yep.
and so all of this is a way of being able to be engaged in that music and
Exactly.
share in it.
So that's the thing. So fandom, I mean, for a long time, of course, people have expressed fandom by just, by going to concerts and experiencing the music together and everything. And fan conventions have been, and that's another way of doing it. But in recent years, it's even gone further than that. People taking the music, and creating something of their own from it. I mean, it's fascinating. So our book, so Ken and I recruited some incredible scholars from the U.S., from the U.K., and that's what they're looking at, is how fandom has changed from first generation, as you mentioned, also looking at it in terms of gender, because Candy Leonard is one of the contributors who I'm sure many people know from her book Beatleness, where she looked at particularly how women have been stereotyped, as like the screaming girl fan. That's what they tend to be, when you think of like the first generation female fan, that all they did was scream and faint and everything. That in fact, I mean, many of some of those girls actually formed their own bands and did things like that. And that doesn't get as much attention, or even started their own fanzines. I mean, they weren't all screaming and fainting. I mean, they did other things too. There's a chapter in there about tribute bands. I wrote a chapter about how technology has impacted fandom, like podcasting, like social media. I mean, social media has completely changed fandom. And streaming media, how people can share music with each other, and things like that. And so we take a look at it from first generation through the present, and talk about where could it go in the future, and the whole thing is that all of this is keeping the music and the fandom alive. And that's the great thing about it. And as you said, Ed, at that fest, you really saw it with all the young people there, and how they're, keeping it
just so enthusiastic about it. And
they
you just
really are.
wouldn't expect it, and the fact that they took time to do panels and things like that, so that they could talk about their experiences and how they were growing it, and so it's very positive, and
it really is.
And I'm really enthusiastic about the future, as far as how that develops.
Absolutely. And so so if you're interested in checking our book out, I like to say, it's fandom and the Beatles. I mean, of course it's about the Beatles, but it's about you. That's what it's really about.
Where is it that people can buy the books?
They can get it at Amazon. I think it's also Barnes and Noble. You can also order it from the Oxford University Press site, but probably the best, easiest way is Amazon. And
that's
so you can
would you say that'd be the same for the other books as well? The songs we were singing in Michael Jackson?
Yeah,
very cool.
With Songs We're Singing, you can get it through Amazon. And of course, if you're coming to the Chicago Fest in August, I will be there. You can get it right from me too.
I'm not sure if I can do that one, but I'm sure a lot of other people who are in the Chicago area.
Those who are coming there, you can get it from me there as well.
Should be coming now. When are the dates for the Chicago Fest?
August 12th through the 14th.
Very cool.
I'll be on panels there, and it'll be the first one there since August 2019. So
that's very exciting.
Very excited.
Cool. Very good. Okay, so I gave you a little bit of homework.
Yes,
and I asked you if you could possibly give me a top 5 of your, at the very moment, Paul McCartney favorite songs.
Yes. Let's stress at the very moment. Because if you ask me tomorrow, I could give you a completely different list. so that is the that's the caveat here. Okay.
So fire away.
All right. So, and this was tough. All right. So number 5, kind of a sentimental one for me, Heart of the Country. I love Heart of the Country. Whenever my folks and I go every year, at least twice a year in the summer, to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is right near us. And it's near some like farmland. And whenever we drive there, I crank this song. I love it.
Yeah.
It's just so sweet. I love, the melody,
Yeah.
great guitar, acoustic guitar work. And great lines in there. Heart of the country where the holy people grow. I mean, come
Mm.
on.
Yeah, it
It's
is. It's a
just
very pretty song.
it's a pretty song, and
Yeah.
it's just one of his great celebrations of rural life. I
And
mean,
that's something
it's
he loves so much,
yeah, and you hear it
Yeah.
in this song. I
Right.
just have always enjoyed it. So right now that's my number
Okay.
5. Number 4, kind of continuing with the rural, and it's because he played it recently in concert. I love Junior's Farm. I loved Junior's Farm. I was thrilled when he played this in concert.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, how fun is this? I mean, it's just another celebration of just, being in the country, and it just has that great sing-along
A lot of
quality.
great lyrical wordplay
Yep,
and characters and so forth. I love when he writes songs with his characters.
exactly.
Yeah. It's very
And
cool.
yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. I just always enjoyed it. So yeah, when he started that up, when I
Yeah.
heard the guitar lick, I'm just like, yes. So my whole section started kind of bouncing up and down when he started it. So like, I'm not alone. This is a
Right
great
on.
song. Yep. Number 3, I've always loved Helen Wheels.
Okay.
And I just, there's such a great rocker. Was even my ringtone for a time. Just one of my favorite. I mean, it's just fun. I mean, there's nothing deep about it or anything like
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
some great love. The beginning riff, great. Ripping solo in the middle. Love the drums on it too. It just has,
Mm.
such a great beat to it. And just and I like his voice on it. It just has, that little
It's got a
nasally
little bit of
flow.
character in it, right? Yeah.
Exactly. It just has
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
different character to it. And why he didn't want to put it on Band on the Run, I'll never understand. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a
There were
great
decisions
song.
like that raise a lot of questions because it would have lengthened the album just a little bit, and it would have fit the record,
Yeah.
and of course, you're talking about all this freedom. Well, this is the freedom of the road,
Yeah. I mean,
and
the ultimate car song. Yeah.
actually, when you go on a road trip, you got to have that on the playlist.
You bet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, play Heart of the Country and Helen Wheels. Come on. I mean, you got to do it. Number 2, I've talked about this song many times, and you know how much I love my R&B. So I have to have Arrow Through Me.
Oh, one of my favorites too.
I love Arrow Through Me, and he's never, well, at least I've never seen him do it live. I would
Right.
love to see him do this live. I just,
Yes.
I love the keyboard, love the the drumming on it. I just, we don't see this R&B side of Paul enough. I
No.
just
No.
wish we saw it more. This has just always been one of my favorite Paul tracks.
And with the horn section that he brought in for this tour,
Oh,
that
wouldn't
would
have
have
been
been absolutely
perfect?
insane for that song. Oh
I
my God.
know. Would have been perfect. I mean, yeah, he had the horns, he had everything, but well, but
Yeah.
anyway, and
I
my
know.
the number 1 is Take It Away. I love
It's a
Take It
great
Away.
song too.
I love it. And I mean, I remember when it came out, and even though, I wasn't a big Paul fan at that point, and I wasn't, fully aware of who he was, I remember seeing the video and all.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
then I was like, I like this song. I mean,
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
harmonies on it are
Right.
just so spot on. It's the great lyrics. Of course, I didn't know it at the time, but now listening to it, referring to, the being discovered by an impresario, the
Right,
band,
right, right.
of course, thinking back
I
to
mean, it
Brian Epstein.
doesn't have to be Brian Epstein, but it just
Yeah,
works with any band that might be working, and they did that very nicely with the way that video was constructed, and
exactly. The
you
video's
know,
great. I
yeah.
love the video.
And I
I
think
mean,
Eric Stewart was the one that did the arrangement,
I
or at least
think so.
assisted with the arrangement.
I think, yeah, Eric Stewart was definitely involved in it, and you can hear it in those harmonies too, like those layered
That
harmonies.
10cc sound,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, that lush kind of harmony. And I mean, it's just, one of Paul's great bass lines too.
True,
Great bass
yes.
work
Yeah.
from him on it. One of his all-time best singles. I can't say enough about Take It Away. I love it.
Okay, cool. All right. So take a breath. I'm gonna do a little bit of a promo here,
Mhm.
and then we'll come back and we have another section that'll talk more about the tours.
Sounds good.
So
Love it.
let me just run through a little bit on another little promo for our podcast friends. Um, um, my friend Mark Arnold has a great podcast called Fun Ideas Podcast, and you can check out that on Spotify, and check out Mark Arnold. Just go to Google and Amazon, and you can find books that he's written. He's written 2 books with Michael Van Trella on the Monkees, and a bunch of other things. Very much involved with the comic books and so forth, and a lot of fun stuff. So check out my friend Mark. And then I have my friend Fred Velez, who is a great Monkees fan, as well as a fan of the Beatles and lots of other things. And you can check out his website at freddie.wordpress, excuse me, freddie.pop.wordpress.com. He's written 2 books on the Monkees. One is called A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You, and the second book is A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You Too. And the differentiation is that the first book is about domestic Monkees fans and their experiences, and I guess their fandom. And the other book is about international fans. So if you can, uh, check those guys out on Google, Facebook, YouTube, and so forth. Um, and now we can get back to the second half of our discussion here with our guest, Kit O Toole. Kit, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the concert experiences, but I like to think of as yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Back in the day, I think your first tour for McCartney was actually mine as well, the 89-90 tour, which was the Flowers in the Dirt tour. Could you tell me what your experience was on that, and what you recollect mostly from that?
Sure. I saw him twice on that tour. The first one was, December 3rd, 1989. To say it was exciting is putting it mildly. We all remember, right? First time you
Right.
see Paul in person, you're in the
Yeah.
same vicinity as Paul McCartney. Come on. It was a great show. I loved that band that
Yeah.
he had. I mean, it
Me
was
too.
just, Hamish Stewart, I'm a fan of anyway, because the Average White Band, they were incredible. So
They were a
that
good
was
band.
good band. So that was a smart move for him to get Hamish Stewart, because he was just an all-around great musician, great singer too. So so it was just an all-around terrific band. I guess Wicks is the only one left from that band that he still plays with.
Right.
But I was talking about this with a friend the other day, that it was interesting how he started off. The kickoff song was Figure of Eight, and
Yeah.
he probably wouldn't do that today, that he would kick off the whole concert with a new song. But I thought it worked on that tour. I thought
Yeah.
Figure of Eight was a pretty good lead off song, because it was, yes, it was a a track, Flowers in the Dirt track, but I thought it still worked to lead off. I mean, it was a strong song. May not have been a huge hit, but it still I thought was a good way to kind of introduce him, and it was just because it was a good song.
It
I
was, and
mean,
he was at the point in time, I think, where he was trying to push, not push, but he was more open to promoting his current music,
mhm,
and he wasn't afraid, like, I only can do 2 or 3 songs.
yeah,
I think that tour he had like 8, maybe 7 or 8 songs
yep,
from that album, and
mhm,
Flame and not Flaming Pie, Figure of Eight really has all the ingredients of that opening type of song, and it also has this silly singing that he likes to call it.
yeah.
And so it's really great introduction to the concert.
It
So
really was. And
yeah,
yeah, so I mean, I thought that was a great way to start it. And and yeah, I mean, I went back and looked at the set list because I was trying, I couldn't remember every single thing he did on there. And yeah, he did a number of songs from Flowers in the Dirt on that one. I mean, he did Rough Ride, he did
Rough Ride,
yeah, Rough Ride, Put It There.
right,
And this one, My Brave Face, which,
right,
of course, that was great. So I mean, he did way more than he would do now
right,
from a
right.
new album. I mean, it was interesting.
And this
Um,
one at the time was one of my big favorites.
yep, and yeah, those songs sounded great live.
They did.
They really did.
He
So
had
it just
fun playing with them too, it just seemed to be really enjoying himself on
he,
stage.
he did, and I mean, he looked great, he sounded great, and I remember, of course, you know, seeing him do Beatles songs live. I mean,
Yes.
that was just a dream come true. I
I mean,
mean,
he wasn't embracing his past
no, yeah,
prior to that, except maybe here and there. Um,
exactly.
but it was so great to hear those songs. And I remember crying during Golden Slumbers. Because I
Wow.
knew it was coming towards the end, and just that moment when I hear when he sings "Golden Slumbers,"
Mm,
whatever, fill your eyes, whatever it is,
yeah.
smiles awake you when you rise. I'm like, oh my god, this was so great, and to hear
I,
this voice, it
I
was
remember
so
him
great.
doing, yeah, I remember him doing Fool on the Hill. And and
Yes.
and that meant a lot because my dad used to play that.
Okay.
And so when he sang that, I was just like, oh my God,
Yeah. Right. 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 Right.
like
Right. Right.
he's actually doing it, and he had the,
Right.
the funky piano, the brightly colored piano. And I mean, it was just, it was such a thrill.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I couldn't shut up about that concert for
Oh man.
days,
Yeah. Oh sure. Sure.
and then I saw him again, and this still ranks as I think the best concert I've ever been to, which was it was I want to say July 31st. I'm not 100% sure the exact date, but it was the last date on that tour, and it was at Soldier Field
Okay.
in Chicago. And because it was the last date on that tour, I mean, you could tell he was like, all right, we're going to really, rip this up. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
tell. And it was, I mean, that was incredible show. And they had a huge fireworks display at the end. And this was, at a time, I know people are like, big deal or fireworks. Now, back in 1990, that was not like, I don't think he did that all the time,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
that I recall.
Right.
And so yeah, there was this massive fireworks show at the end, and I was on the field for that one. Now, and I'll just tell you a quick story. I was not supposed to be on the field. What happened? What happened? And I've got to say, my mother came to the rescue. Back then, of course, no internet, so you either had to stand in line or you had to call to get your
Right.
tickets. And back then, what they did, because they knew there'd be a massive response, at Soldier Field is, where the Bears play and all, it's
Right.
enormous. So they had 2 phone numbers set up that you could call. So if you couldn't get through to one, you could call the other. So my mother, God bless her, she was so, she was so good. I was in school, so I was in high school. I couldn't call, I
Yeah.
had to go to school. So she's like, I'll call, don't worry about it. So so she called, and when I got home from school, she's like, I got the tickets. So I was like,
Oh
oh my God,
wow.
this is awesome. The next day, there was an article course, that's the only way you could find out about it, in the Tribune, at Chicago Tribune, saying, well, if you called this number, you're out of luck. You won't be getting the tickets. It turned out that one of those phone numbers that they gave wasn't connected to the computer system.
Oh my God.
Yep, they just thought
it hasn't improved, has it?
No, and it hasn't improved a whole lot, has it? Yep. So they're just like, oh, we'll take the orders and then put them in the computer system later. Well, of course, by the time they went to do it, it was all sold out.
Right.
So,
but they took your money.
Yeah, exactly. So of course I was devastated, and I was just like, I can't believe it. You called that number, and I was just, So Mom wrote a scathing letter I don't know what she said, but she wrote some scathing letter to the concert promoter and was like, how can you do this to fans? How, this is horrible. Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure other people complain too, but about maybe a few weeks later, and I still don't know how this happened, Dad gets a call at his workplace. Now, maybe it was because his credit card was used. Maybe that's how they got the number. We're still not sure. He gets a call, and it's from somebody, connected with the concert promoter, and said, we just opened seats on the field. Do you want them?
Yeah.
And thank God, Dad remembered what was happening. He's like, yes, we want the tickets. Right. And so I ended up with way better seats than I would have gotten otherwise. So whatever the heck Mom said in that letter, I mean, it must have been really good.
Perhaps you get some of your writing skills from your mother.
That's right. So thank you, Mom, because I ended up with real way better seats than I would have had. But it was a crazy thing. But it was an amazing concert.
Now, did he?
Oh, go ahead.
Did he perform P.S. Love Me Do?
No, he didn't. I never saw him do it. I mean, I've seen clips of him doing it, but no, he never did that. But he did do, which I thought was fun, the Coming Up that was kind of remixed, and I thought that was kind of fun. I mean, it was a little corny, but it was fun, with the kind of the scratching and the
because that was very hip at the time. That was happening. With that check this out thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun.
Right. I had no problem with it. I don't mind updating it. You're still performing it. It still has the same message and everything.
Exactly. I mean, it would sound corny, really corny now, but in 1990, I mean, it was fun.
Yeah. I remember when he did the P.S. Love Me Do at Nebworth. And I was like, this is great. And if it was 20 years old, you could really sell this as one of those teen pop idols. But at 47,
that was
cringy,
That was cringy. Yeah. P.S. I love. Yeah. P.S. I love. Yeah. P.S. Love Me Do. Excuse me.
Love Me Do.
Yeah, that was cringy. I think I didn't hear it really until I think, was it the Flowers in the Dirt tour pack, maybe? I don't know. I got it. It was an extra track or something where I finally heard it, and I was like, what the hell is this?
Well, he put out together something called the birthday box, I guess, for his 50th birthday. I think that might have been included as part of that.
That's where I found it. Yep. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell is this? What were you thinking? What is this? But
I could see maybe Donny Osmond doing it, maybe years earlier or something like that. But it was fun, and I was like, "Oh, this is great! I love the idea of it." But it just wasn't quite right for McCartney at that particular time.
Yeah, and the execution was not good.
Maybe you could get. I don't remember who was a big hit. Tina, maybe Justin Bieber was popular in 1990, but I don't know, maybe somebody like that, whatever, who knows.
Yeah, maybe a teenager could have carried that off,
right,
but
exactly. But anyway, whatever. He tries to do everything there's never any real rhyme or reason for a lot of things. He just does it, He just puts it out there,
Just moves on.
So moving on.
Yeah.
See how I work that, huh?
Yeah, very good. Nice segue.
So, we had the great opportunity of seeing Paul McCartney just a few weeks ago in Orlando. You once again on the floor,
Yes,
and me
yep,
up in the nosebleed seats there,
yep.
but
I splurged.
a hell of a
I did
concert.
splurge, but it was so great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just a great
I thought
show.
the crowd I was with was just great. And of course, I saw the show with my sister Nancy and my nephews Tom and Mark, and so it was a big deal for me to be able to have that have that experience with them.
Oh,
And
that is so cool.
and I was so worried because I had seen that Hulu special where he did
Mhm.
the interview with Rick Rubin,
Oh, sure. Yeah,
and
McCartney
he was
321.
croaking away, and I was like,
Yeah.
has he lost his voice? And it was just so sad. And I was
Yeah.
worried what he was going to be able to sound like in the concert setting.
Yeah, I was too. I almost didn't go. It was a last minute thing for me, but Tom Hunyadi, as you know, he went to the LA gig and had such a great time, and he was saying his voice actually sounded pretty good.
Yeah,
And so I then thought, well, I don't know. And then our friend Ed Chen, who hosts When They Was Fab,
right.
he got in touch and he's like, look, I'm going to Orlando. I've got an Airbnb. I've got everything set. Just get a ticket and come out
Yeah,
here, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And then he enlisted Tom to further pressure me to go. And so both of them were like, you only live once, just
Yeah,
do it. And I'm like, all right, all right. And then I found out so many people I knew, like you and many others were going. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And I'm really glad I did because his voice did sound way better than I
it
expected.
did. And well, again, cutting back to the Beatles community. It's
Yeah,
been so much fun listening to reading to various people's experiences through Facebook or whatever, and all these people meeting up with each other or just experiencing it at the same time. So I was like, wow, this is just so much fun to experience the concert in a new way.
it
Because I'm
really was.
experiencing, even if I'm not there, I'm experiencing all these pictures and these stories and all that.
Hmm.
And I enjoyed the show so much. And you talk about set lists and things. So he doesn't necessarily want to change the set lists, and which is
Yep.
kind of frustrating. And
Yeah.
I was kind of concerned about how he was going to hit "Can't Buy Me Love." Never mind having a voice in the first place,
Right.
but "Can't Buy Me Love" is almost at the top of his range.
Yeah.
And the first song, and he comes right out with "Can't Buy Me Love," and I was like, he hit it.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did. Well, yep. And when he started, maybe I'm amazed. I was just like, oh, how's this going to turn out? And yeah, he doesn't sound like he did,
no,
years ago. I mean, now he's 80.
but I
He's not
can't expect him to sound like he's 32 or whatever.
exactly. So,
No.
I mean, he sounds like he sounds, but it was way better than I expected. I
Let me
mean,
ask you a question about Maybe I'm Amazed and some of the other songs that he performed at that piano, which I think is where he also performed Let It Be
yeah.
and a few other songs. I got the impression that the sound was mixed down on that microphone for a reason, because he would be stretching himself.
Yeah, I think there were some times where, yeah, I think the mix was a little bit down, and that's okay. Particularly, I think Let It Be, I may have noticed it a bit. That I think, and of course everybody sings along,
Right.
and so and which is great. That's
Yeah.
fine. And so yeah, I kind of noticed that too. The other thing I noticed though, as well as if you really listen to him. He's learning, I think he learned some tricks to preserve his voice. And again, this is absolutely fine. He doesn't hold certain notes as long.
Yes.
He's changed his phrasing a bit
Right.
on some lines so that he almost I don't mean like he's rapping or anything, but he
Yep. In other
speaks
words, he's not
certain
necessarily
words.
always hitting the high note,
Yeah,
but he's
and
phrasing
yeah,
it in such a way that he's still singing the whole song, but he's just doing it in a slightly different way to preserve his voice.
yeah,
And that kind of
and
made it
that's
fresh.
cool.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Because I know some people, because I've also said, hey, if he needs to lower the key on certain songs, I don't have a problem with that. I'd rather he do that than strain, and some people get upset about that. So if he has to do this, just doing some rephrasing, don't hold certain notes as long. Great. If that,
Right on.
that preserves his voice.
Yeah.
That's totally fine with me. He doesn't have to sing them the same way,
Right.
and it's clearly paying off.
Right on.
Mhm.
The only again, I was so thrilled that his voice was I wouldn't even say it was intact. It was pretty strong.
Yeah.
For a man
Mhm.
at almost 80 years old.
Mhm.
And so when I look at what I would consider the cringe-worthy moments in the concert, the only one that I really come out with is that you never give me your money,
Yeah.
slash bathroom window medley.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
just thought that was just awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, you could hear it a bit. I also heard it a bit on Live and Let Die. I could hear some moments where he was struggling with some of the notes there.
Okay.
Ooh, but well, I will say though, with Golden Slumbers and Carry That Weight, when he did Get Back before that, and of course, he was straining, his voice a bit, and I thought, how the hell is he going to pull off Golden Slumbers and Carry That Weight after
Yeah.
that vocal workout?
Right.
And yeah, he did struggle a bit because of that, but I think because I think he did Get Back right before that, right? I think,
I think
or was it?
if I remember correctly, it was Get Back, Band on the Run. Then he did the three, Let It Be, um, Live and Let Die, and Hey Jude. And
Okay.
then he came back with
Oh, I've got a feeling.
I Got a Feeling, Helter
Feeling.
Skelter,
Sure.
and
Oh, so it was Helter Skelter before.
yeah, so Helter
Oh,
Skelter
so that's
was,
right.
which was nuts. I don't think I ever even heard Paul McCartney sing. I just saw that the whatever the background was, and
Yeah.
you can hear the band playing loud. So I wasn't so sure it was Paul McCartney singing, but I figured he had to be in there. He was doing it all night long, so he's got to be rocking that. And it
Yeah.
was great. I was just enjoying it. I wasn't even thinking about it singing at that point.
Yep. So that's right. So that's yeah, really. Yeah, that background was crazy.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's right. It wasn't Get Back. It was Helter Skelter. So yeah, going from Helter Skelter,
into
I
the
mean,
medley.
to the medley, I'm like, how the hell is this going to work? And his
Yeah,
voice was better than I thought it
it
would be.
was. It
I mean,
really
that
was.
was, crazy. So there were moments like that in the concert where I was kind of holding my breath, and it sounded better. But yeah, yeah, there were some points that you definitely could hear. And also, I will say, she came in through the bathroom. You never give me your money, and all. Yeah, it was kind of awkwardly also placed. I
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought, and where he came in
right.
was awkward. Also, when he keeps saying, "Oh, this is the first time we're doing this," and I get, no, it isn't. No, it isn't.
It's got a interesting memory, selective memory.
Yeah, exactly.
And
It's
go.
like, oh, actually, it isn't, but that's okay. That's all right. You can think that. That's totally cool. But anyway, so yeah, that was a little awkward. But you're true. That's true. But I also think what's paying off is the having more days in between dates.
Yeah,
Not.
yeah.
I think when he has, like, 3 days in a row or whatever where he's performing, that is not a good idea. He needs,
Absolutely. It's too
yeah,
much. Yeah,
has to rest his
yeah.
voice. Yeah.
And he should be able to arrange that. I mean,
Sure.
he's Paul McCartney. The promoters should be happy to have him working, and the venue is happy to have him performing in their arena. So
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
But as much as we may bitch about the set list and so forth, and some of the repeated stories and all that, when I'm there, it
Oh,
doesn't
sure.
bother me. I'm just enjoying it so much. But I wish to God he'd retire a couple of songs like Lady Madonna.
Yes.
I'm done with Lady Madonna.
Me too.
Um, and I know it's a touchy issue, but I don't really think he needs to just have so many songs with John Lennon.
Mm-hmm.
Again, maybe he looks at Benefit of the Mr. Kite for different reasons than I'm looking. I hear it as a John Lennon song. Maybe he hears it as a happy memory or whatever, a certain
Mm-hmm.
aspect of that he's enjoys it for. And even doing having John being a part of the I Got a Feeling.
Yeah.
I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just a little bit too much. I would really rather see him focus more on his own solo material or his
Mm-hmm.
Wings material,
Yeah.
because I think that unfortunately that gets brushed under the rug. And if you're talking about legacy, you know, there's a possibility that maybe some of that gets missed.
Yeah, because I mean, he had a lot of hits with Wings.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and I don't know if he thinks that, people don't care as much about the Wings era anymore, and that's silly. I mean, when you look back, I mean, as I said, he had a ton of hits
yeah.
with Wings. So I don't think he should just say, oh, nobody cares about that anymore. Everyone just wants to hear Beatles. Now, and it's true that, I'm sure you saw this too, at the show. Yeah, people want to hear the hits. I mean,
Right,
that's,
right.
I get it. We're probably, us diehards, we're the only ones who want to hear the B-sides and all that stuff. I mean, I get it. I get it. But yeah, there are plenty of hits to play from the Wings era.
Absolutely. And it's there are a lot of comparable artists like Paul McCartney, Paul Simon,
Hmm.
Brian Wilson even,
Yeah.
that will play deeper cuts of
Yep.
things.
Hmm.
And I would like to see Paul be able to adopt some of those ideas,
Yeah.
when he constructs his set lists. And I do believe that there is a future.
Yeah.
I do believe that there are maybe a tour next year, but even though he just finished his tour, he's going to be performing Glastonbury
Right. Yeah,
this
that's coming up.
weekend.
Hmm.
And I saw a posting on Facebook because 24/7 on Facebook, eight
Yep.
days a week.
That's
Um,
right.
there was a posting supposedly from Paul McCartney in which they ask you to give them your set list
Oh, I
for
saw
Paul's
that.
consideration. And of course, I bid on that, and I had to throw in my 2 cents on that. And
Sure.
so I thought it might be fun to ask you again more homework to
Hmm.
see if
Yep.
you could construct your own set list. We could maybe try to put one together
Hmm.
for Paul in the future.
Okay.
So
All
how do you
right.
feel about that?
All right. Yep. I did. Yep. I did my homework, and this is another one that, if you ask me tomorrow, I might give you a different list. But yeah,
Okay.
I worked on it, and probably some of this is going to be controversial with some of the ones that I dropped. But there are just some that I'm like, I can't listen to it
Okay.
anymore.
So I'm
But
gonna
and
type some of these in so this we have a record of it and we can.
okay. All right. And
Okay.
some of them I reluctantly left in because I thought, people really like it, and
Yeah.
I can't. All right. All right. So definitely want to kick it off with Venus and Mars Rock Show. I want him to bring that back. I think
Okay.
I love that opener.
Yeah, I get
Um,
that too.
yep. I mean, come on. About being at a concert,
Right.
I want him to leave in Junior's Farm. I thought that was fun. Um, then when we were talking about the horns and all, I think silly love songs. You've got that horn section. Bring that back. Let's hear those horns.
I think that's a good place for it too.
Yeah, exactly. Now, and some of this, the order, I'm not 100% sure about. I think I'd have
Okay.
to work on it more with some of the orders. So some of the order might not be great. Okay. Let's keep those horns going with "Got to Get You Into My Life." I think leave that in. That's okay, because you've got the horns there, and
Right.
that's
And
that
that
feels
just makes everybody jump up and down and stuff.
exactly. All right, then got to get the new album in. So I was sort of torn between, well, actually, this is one of them is from Egypt Station, and
Okay.
the other one is, I was kind of torn here. So either keep Come On to Me, because that did go over well.
It did.
At Orlando. That did go over well. So, or stick in Find My Way. Because I
Okay.
do, because he played nothing from the new album.
No,
so,
he didn't. No.
Yeah. So, I mean, Find My Way is possible. So I'm split between those two. But as I said, Come On to Me went over way better than I expected. So,
yeah, it did.
So I'm torn between keeping that in or swapping that out.
Okay.
With Find My Way. So I'm torn. Okay, let's do Helen Wheels. I want to get Helen Wheels in there. Let's see. Getting Better. I'm okay with leaving that in. I like Getting Better, so we can leave that in.
Sure.
And Let 'Em In. I did enjoy hearing that on this tour. So that's okay. We can keep that in. I also it's allowed. 1985. I do like when he does that. So that's okay. Then I'm done with Maybe I'm Amazed. So
okay.
Let's swap that out with My Love. I think that would be a nice tribute to Linda. And that he can show wonderful pictures of her and all that, but something, do My Love, just something different, and just still pay tribute to her. I mean, I'm all for that, but time to retire.
And also might be a little bit easier on his voice, because he can do the whoa 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 whoa. Doesn't have to give it full effort in his voice. It can be a bit more more subtle.
Exactly, more subtle, and you're still paying tribute.
And that's also, you talk about the phrasing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because he's not doing it exactly on the record, but I don't want him to do it necessarily right on the record. I want him to play around with it a little bit.
Exactly. He can play around with it. Absolutely. So you're still paying tribute to Linda, but it's just a little different.
Okay.
All right. So then let's get in a little bit of a deeper Beatle cut here. I mean, quotes deeper. Love to hear Another Girl. Well, I'd like to hear him do that.
I think I heard him do that at Yankee Stadium 10 years.
Did he really?
2011. Yeah.
Oh wow! I don't remember. I kept trying to, because I know he skipped us a few times. Yeah. So that may be on a tour that I didn't see him do that.
Okay.
But yeah. Okay. So then in this case, bring back Another Girl.
Okay.
All right. I'm done with In Spite of All the Danger. He's done that too many times. All right. So we're gonna take that out.
Okay.
Now, but I do like the idea of doing an early Beatles, like a really early Beatles track. So I think it'd be fun if he did and again, kind of three possibilities here, like a Decca track,
Mucho, maybe.
Yeah, right. That'd be fun. That would be fun. But like Love of the Loved, Hello Little Girl, or Like Dreamers Do. Like one of those, let's we can, take it way back, but, and that would be new to a lot of people, not to us, but to a lot of people. So we're done with the In Spite of All the Danger story. Great story. And the first time I heard it, I loved it.
Yeah.
But that's over. So, but basically Mucho might be, that'd be a fun one too. But
who exactly was Duff? That's what I really want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Who was Duff? I think somebody should be investigating that somewhere. Was there really a Beatle quarryman or whatever named Duff?
But we're done with the Duff story. Enough with Duff, So, because see, then he could tell the story about the Decca audition, and I mean, but to hear it straight from him, and it'd be great. So so like Love of the Love, Hello Little Girl, or Like Dreamers Do. It didn't say it's one of my early compositions, and I'd love to hear him do one of those.
I think the only time he did Hello Little Girl was on the Unplugged show.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And so that'd be cool if he did one of those. I'm not picky,
Okay.
Okay. I liked hearing him do Love Me Do. That was, I mean, I think he's done it before, but it was kind of fun hearing him do it. So that's okay. He can leave that in.
No PS, right? Okay.
No PS. No, no, no. No way. All right. All right. As we talked about earlier, Arrow Through Me. He's got those horns.
Yeah.
Let's get Arrow Through Me in there. Let's see. Then okay, let's see. Then I thought okay, let's see. I think I wanted to swap this. I think this might be the acoustic. Yeah, again, I'd be playing around with the order a little bit, but I think for an acoustic part, Mother Nature's Son. I'd like to hear that instead. I'd like to hear that instead of Blackbird. You know,
okay.
Again, love Blackbird, but enough.
Let's freshen things up a bit.
Freshen things up. Freshen up. So let's hear Mother Nature's
It's a good
Son.
idea. You could have suggested Paul as an idea for a tour.
Yeah, exactly. Freshen up, but mean it.
Really fresh.
Exactly. And maybe for another acoustic, and I love her, but arranged like he did on Unplugged.
Yeah.
You know, I loved
that was good when Hamistu and him sang that together. That was
yep,
great.
I love that. So like, you know, something along those lines. So he could still have the acoustic version. But you know, but do it like that. That'd be fun. Now the one thing I'm still, let's see, I thought I've put that in because I was trying to figure how we could do I thought I had him. Thought I put something in. Okay, well, I'll get to that later. So I was trying to figure out how we could still do a tribute to George, but not do something because that has, you know, well, I mean, it's very sweet, but you know, and same thing with Here Today. I'm sorry, you know, it's just, you know, that's a kind of getting a little tired, you know.
I know. So, hey, look, you've been doing it for 20 years. Yeah, it would be nice to see him freshen that up.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, yes, I see my tribute to George.
Okay, what do you got?
Okay, well, that's coming later. I was just getting scared. I forgot about it. And maybe, I think the And I Love Her, you know, I was trying to think of a way that maybe he could, or no, I guess I was thinking I've Got a Feeling in there, but that would be the tribute to John, and that would be in the encore. So, okay, never mind. I just looked and I was terrified that I'd forgotten. So, all right. So no, I hadn't. All right. Going back to the order. Okay. So after And I Love Her. All right. Let's get another new McCartney 3 song in there. I wanted him to do Sliding. I would love to hear him do Sliding. I think that'd be perfect for live. You know,
yes, it would.
Yep. Okay. You know, right now I'm saying leave Lady Madonna in there, but I'm really torn. That one could be swapped out.
Lady Madonna.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn about that. I mean, I'm leaving it in there for now, but I'm definitely open to that being swapped out for something else. But you know,
I think you've changed most everything else.
Yeah, I know. I know I've changed a lot. I mean, well, you said my dream set list. No More Lonely Nights. I love to hear No More Lonely Nights. Let's see. Trying to remember what I swapped this out for, but just a different Sgt. Pepper song. Lovely Rita. Maybe I traded this out for being For the Benefit of Mr. Kite, because yeah, I'm done with that.
yeah.
So, you know, Lovely Rita be, you know, that's kind of fun.
Okay.
Okay, here's my George tribute. All Things Must Pass. I like the way he did it in Concert for George.
Right.
So I think that would be a lovely tribute. Let's see. Then I think this must have been swapping out maybe for a Magical Mystery Tour. Your Mother Should Know. I think that'd be kind of fun. And he's got the horns. So, you know, there you go. Let's see. Then Keep You Never Give Me Your Money. And She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. Although, yeah, I could be talked into swapping those out. You know, that's a possible. Let's see. Get Back. As much as he's played that, that was a song that I really liked way more at the last concert, in Orlando, because having that footage, that new footage, well, new to us, in the back, and knowing how he composed it,
Yeah.
after we saw that really brought new meaning to the song for me.
Yeah.
And so I think leave that in, even though
Right.
we've heard him do it 1,000 times.
Right. No, I definitely like that one in the concert if I can get it.
Yep. So
You know?
let's leave that in.
Okay.
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 Now I think you had this in your list too, Uncle Albert. I would like to hear that.
Cool.
Yep, that'd be great. Even though he's done this a bunch of times, Mrs. Vanderbilt, I do like that live. Both, hey ho, come on. It's fun. It's fun.
It is.
Yep. And then let's see. I did leave in, Let It Be. Okay. I know we've heard it 1,000 times, but I'll tell you, every time when I look up in the stands and see all the lights, I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to leave it in. That's pretty cool.
It has to be in. Yeah.
It has to be.
That's in. my opinion. It has to be in.
It has to be in.
Leave the classics in,
Yeah, exactly. I do like same thing with Live and Let Die, Yeah, I'm kind of sick of the song, but come on, those effects. I mean, they go boom. Come on.
I have a friend of mine who thinks that they could take dancing from the Electric Arguments album, Dancing Till We're High, I think it's called.
Dance Till We're High, yeah.
Dance Till We're High together, which is a really great song. And that could be the new Live and Let Die song, but nobody's gonna know the song.
Nobody's gonna know that. I mean, that's the problem, because like these next three, okay, yeah, Let It Be, Live and Let Die, and I guess we have to leave in Hey Jude.
And Hey Jude, right.
I mean, I kind of winced when I left these three in, but it's like, you know what? They're tradition.
Right.
And you can't, they're just absolute tradition. I guess we can't touch those.
Right.
So, okay. So that's the regular. And then Encore. I actually didn't change the Encore all that much. I think I just added, I swapped out, I think is Birthday in the Encore? I forget, because I got rid of
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay, I got rid of Birthday. We're done with Birthday.
We're knocking Birthday out. It's
I'm
no longer your birthday. Move on to something else.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sick of Birthday. So I swapped that out. I love now, and this is kind of, in a way, pretending that his voice is okay. I got a feeling that's fine, because even if he got rid of the John part, the screen, I love that song anyway. So yeah. I do like it when he does it live. I'd like to hear Oh Darling. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Oh, that would be a stretching his voice. Yeah.
That's the problem. So this is a little fantasy here.
Okay.
Little fantasy. But and then Golden Slumbers carry that weight in the end. I mean, you have to. Right. You have to end it like that. I mean, I can't think of a better way. So that's my list. So,
very cool.
Now again, ask me tomorrow.
You're gonna change it.
And I would probably change it, but
that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a fun exercise.
It was. It was hard. It was hard because some of it, and there's still some that I'm like, I don't know. I might go back and change some of this, but yeah, because some of it was like, okay, I thought, okay, definitely I'd axe this, but then like, but what would I change it to? Because I thought about it like, well, I'd love to hear Angry. But then I'd be like, but is that realistic? No one's going to know that.
Nobody's going to know that one. There were certain things, and there were certain things you have to respect the fact that people come to the concert. They're not necessarily McCartney addicts like you and I, and people like that, and so you want to make sure that they enjoy the show too. But I think he definitely could, give his diehard fans a little something.
Yeah, exactly. And I had to axe my Valentine. No disrespect to Nancy. No disrespect to her. But
you write a new song.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What about that one from Kisses on the Bottom? Only in my heart. Only
in our hearts.
Oh,
yeah,
it's a great one. You could pull that one in there.
Yeah, put that one in there. Just, my Valentine's got to go.
Okay, sounds good.
So, yep. So there you go. That was,
Yeah,
yeah, you gave me some homework I had to really
you
think
did.
about.
This has been so much fun, Kit. It
Oh,
really has.
really enjoyed it. Thank you so
And
much for asking me.
I understand that you have an upcoming course coming up with Monmouth University.
I
Um,
do, yes.
and
It
that's going to be on.
It is going to be a two-part course, actually. In September, part one September and part two in December. It's the history of rock and roll, or actually, it's the roots of rock and roll. Excuse me, the roots of rock and roll.
Okay.
I came up with the idea when every year when we go through the nominations for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. People argue about what is rock,
Yeah.
because people will be nominated certain artists and they'll say that's not rock, that's not rock. And that made me think about, what about doing a course asking what is rock? And,
Yeah.
what are the different kinds of music that go into, that went into the creation of rock and roll. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm teaching. So part one, we'll talk about gospel, blues, R&B, and part two is going to talk about country, skiffle, folk, and number of other genres. And
Cool.
I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And as you said, it's through Monmouth University. It's on Zoom. And I have, as you know, as you've taken my courses, it's part presentation, part group discussion.
Right.
I give a little homework too, although I say homework in quotes because it's fun. It's fun
Yeah.
homework.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no grading or anything like that.
And I suppose if you go to Google, you can look up Monmouth University and Kit O Toole class or something like that, or
Yeah, you
you'll
can
find it.
look up. I think it's Monmouth University Adult Education. You
Adult
can
education.
Google that. Yep. You can also you can find me on Facebook. Just look under Kit O Toole, or Kit O Toole Keynotes is my professional Facebook page, and I will post the links up there,
Cool.
and you can check it out.
And I'll
Absolutely.
I'll be signing up for that too because I enjoyed the other classes so much,
Excellent. I was
and the
hoping you would.
group participation and so forth. So
It's fun.
so this has been great, and I'm so glad to have you here, and the first guest, and so forth. It's been a real pleasure, and we got
I
through it.
really enjoyed
So
it.
I
Oh,
think
we
that's
did
great.
it.
So just to one more time, just want to wish Paul McCartney happy birthday, his 80th birthday. Also, Brian Wilson's 80th birthday was just the other day. So a lot of things going on in the 80th birthday department.
Yes, indeed.
I like to ask my friends, I ask you to check out in the Google for Plastic EP and Fred Velez and Mark Arnold, and check out the Honeymooners podcast and all those things, and enjoy them. I thank you for listening to Ed's Pop-O-Matic podcast, a retro pop culture podcast where everything retro beats a new. If you keep it in your heart, I thank you and good night.
Peace and love.
Okay, and recording. Stop recording. How do I stop recording?